Celsius, touch below average, certainly feeling cold with that breeze on the east coast, but in the sunshine, as I said, it's a cracking day generally. Quite quickly this evening, though, notice how the blue hue takes hold of the map. A frost forming very quickly this evening. It's going to be a very cold night. Later in the night, cloud will spill into Northern Ireland, Western Scotland and northwest England, which will help to lift the temperatures here. But certainly across much of the south and the east, a frost and a really cold night across the south, one of the coldest of the winter so far. So a hard frost in the south on Friday morning, but then plenty of sunshine here to come on Friday. Another sunny day across the east with lighter winds. Probably feeling a bit warmer from Yorkshire down to East Anglia. But it will be cloudier further west, and I think we'll keep a lot of cloud through the day for Wales, northwest England, Northern Ireland, Western Scotland. The odd spot of drizzle over the Highlands, but for the vast majority it's dry. Temperatures maybe a touch higher, but it won't feel as warm with the cloudier skies in the west. It will probably feel a bit milder tomorrow in the east without those winds. The wind's picking up further in the northwest with a bit more patchy rain as we head through Friday night. There are weather fronts which will push in here this weekend, bringing some patchy rain to western Scotland. But for most places, it's dry this weekend with a mixture of cloudy spells and a bit of sunshine.
Hello there, I'm Eamon.
And I'm Isabel.
And you're watching the GB News digital stream across the United Kingdom.
And around the world. If
you're here in the UK, you can also watch us on your TV screen. GB News is Freeview channel 236.
On Sky, we're channel 515.
626 on Virgin Media.
Just remember, you might need to retune your TV to watch the channel.
Yeah, and if you are doing that, find out more about retuning by going to gbnews.uk.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilized conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Hello there, I'm Eamon Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamon
and Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
Hello and welcome to The Briefing with me, Gloria De Piero. Despite all the talk of letters of no confidence yesterday, Boris Johnson is probably feeling relieved today, but that could change quickly. We'll have the latest from Conservative and Labour MPs on what might happen next. Plus, we're talking autism, access to digital devices and the menopause. But first, here's the news with Rosie.
Good afternoon, it's 12 o'clock. I'm Rosie Wright to get you up to date here in the GB News newsroom. MPs have been urged to report blackmail attempts to the police if they've been pressured by the government for calling on the Prime Minister to resign. A senior Conservative MP, William Wragg, accused the government of intimidating MPs who tried to remove Boris Johnson. Downing Street says they are not aware of any evidence to support what are clearly serious allegations about lawmaker intimidation.
It is not their function to breach the ministerial code in threatening to withdraw investments from members of Parliament's constituencies which are funded from the public purse. Reports to me and others of members of staff at number 10 Downing Street, special advisers, government ministers and others encouraging the publication of stories in the press seeking to embarrass those who they suspect of lacking confidence in the Prime Minister is similarly unacceptable.
The Bury South MP, who defected from the Conservatives to the opposition, says Labour will give the country the leadership it deserves, not one they are embarrassed by. Christian Wakeford introduced a speech by Shadow Chancellor Rachel Reeves in Bury, saying the Conservative Party aren't even talking about the problem, let alone offering solutions. Rachel Reeves says she's happy to have him as a Labour MP and is looking forward to getting to know him.
With Keir Starmer, we are getting real, proper leadership with integrity and respect. The Labour Party is firmly back in the centre of British politics. It's in touch with working people and ready to provide an alternative government that this country can be proud of and deserves, and certainly not to be embarrassed by, and that is one of the reasons why I'm here today.
In other news now, 2 men have been arrested in Birmingham and Manchester as part of the investigation into the US-Texas synagogue attack. Greater Manchester Police say they remain in custody for questioning. Malik Faisal Akram, who was investigated by MI5 in 2020, was shot dead after a 10-hour standoff with SWAT police after taking 4 people hostage over the weekend. No one else was injured. Ghislaine Maxwell's legal team have filed a motion for a retrial weeks after she was found guilty of grooming underage girls to be sexually abused by Jeffrey Epstein. It's after one juror says he failed to disclose before the trial that he was sexually abused as a child and that he described his experience during deliberations. Maxwell's lawyer says the disclosures could have convinced other members of the jury to convict her. The British socialite is due to be sentenced in June. The European Commission President, Ursula von der Leyen, has said the EU will respond with massive economic and financial sanctions if there are further attacks from Russia on Ukraine. It comes as the US President Joe Biden says he believes the Russian President Vladimir Putin will move in on the nation and warns Russia will pay a heavy price if it invades. President Putin has made a list of demands to the West as around 100,000 Russian troops are on Ukraine's border. More than 1.2 million people died from antibiotic-resistant infections in 2019, making it a leading cause of death worldwide. That's more deaths in comparison, for example, than from AIDS or malaria. New research has found drug resistance in respiratory infections like pneumonia had the greatest impact. People are dying, therefore, from common, previously treatable infections because the bacteria that cause them have become resistant to treatment. A man's been remanded in custody after being charged with the murder of the Irish schoolteacher Aisling Murphy. Joseph Puska of County Offaly was heckled as he was taken to a hearing in Tullamore District Court last night. The body of Miss Murphy was found on the banks of the Grand Canal after she'd gone out for a run on Wednesday last week. Around 400 store management jobs are set to be lost at Primark as the retailer plans to simplify its management structure. Well, the company reported a 10% fall for like-for-like sales at the end of last year, attributing the drop to customers' concern over the spread of Omicron. Well, the retailer has promised it will not raise prices for its spring-summer range, despite the pressures of inflation. Now, Emma Raducanu and Andy Murray have both been knocked out of the Australian Open. Both were beaten in their second-round matches. US Open champion Raducanu was hampered by blisters on her racket hand, while the 3-time Grand Slam champion Andy Murray said he was disappointed and frustrated to go out so early. You are up to date here on GB News. I'll have more for you as it happens. Now, the briefing with Gloria.
Coming up this hour on The Briefing, Boris Johnson says he'll come out fighting if his leadership is challenged, but many MPs are on manoeuvres. We're talking to Tory and Labour MPs about just how much trouble is he really in. I'll be joined by former Justice Minister, Secretary Robert Buckland, who's discussing the often dreadful treatment of autistic people in our prisons and mental health institutions. This is a very personal crusade for him. His own daughter is autistic. We have a huge digital footprint these days, and if we die unexpectedly, our next of kin are often locked out of it. I'm talking to the DUP's Ian Paisley, who is calling for that to change. And in my latest Real Me interview, Conservative MP Nickie Aiken tells me we need to talk much more about the menopause. Now, 700,000 people in the UK are autistic. It can be a blessing in ways, but it's not easy. and some autistic people are treated shockingly badly, both in prisons and in mental health institutions. Former Justice Secretary Robert Buckland has long been campaigning on this. His own daughter is autistic, as it happens. He has a debate in Parliament today, and I am delighted that he joins me now. Lovely to see you, Robert Buckland.
Great to see you, Gloria.
I hope you'll forgive me for starting by asking for your reaction about what you make of the plot inside your party to get rid of Boris Johnson.
Well, I mean, it's been taking quite a lot of twists and turns, and there's always a danger, isn't it, that the MPs and politicians here in the bubble just end up talking about nothing else, bearing in mind all the other big issues, such as the one we're talking about today, that are really important to people out there. However, you know, taking your point on board, I think that all eyes will be upon the report that Sue Gray is, it seems to me, painstakingly preparing with her team, which I hope will be published in the next few days, and which will, again, I very much hope, be a comprehensive and conclusive set of facts about all of these various incidents, so that not only politicians but the public can see what these findings are, and then for appropriate consequences to follow. I think that's what most people are doing here at Westminster. They are hopefully keeping a calm head and a cool head and a calm mind, and waiting to see what those facts are going to be.
OK, thank you for that. Now, you've secured a debate in Parliament later today. This is a long-running campaign that you have been running. Just explain it in your own words, if you would.
Yeah, well, indeed, as you said, Gloria, from my own personal experience, and indeed, like you, as a constituency MP for many years, the postbag of the family experiences of people with autism and learning difficulties, one of the saddest and sadly enduring facts about this condition is that there are too many people, adults and children, who are just being detained in hospitals or inpatient settings as if they were people with mental health issues under the Mental Health Act. There are about 2,000 people with autism and learning difficulties in this plight. We've heard some harrowing stories in the last few weeks about Tony Hickmott, who's been in prison or in custody for over 20 years in detention, and patient A, who has had a similar experience, in effect living in a box within an existing inpatient environment. And it seems to me that in 2022, are we really doing everything we can to enhance the quality of life for these people? I don't think we are. And that's why I'm pushing the government to carry out all the good policies that they've set out, the strategies and the plans. Get on with it, and let's actually start to see those numbers coming down, and more people and families getting that quality of life that I think they deserve.
You have spoken about your experience as the father of an autistic daughter. How has that shaped you as a person and as a politician?
Well, Gloria, I think the personal experiences that we all have shape us as human beings. And I did think long and hard, when I came into this place, about whether I should share and talk about my experiences. And I decided to do so because I felt that it was important to help shine a light on the issues and to show other families that they're not alone, that many of us have gone through this experience of understanding and acknowledging and living with disability, and understanding that disability isn't a disease, it isn't an illness, it isn't always a problem. It's actually sometimes a gift, and autism in particular is an incredible new dimension, if you like, or an extra dimension of thinking that is so valuable, both in terms of employability and skills, but also in terms of just looking at the world in a different way. And that's why it saddens me to see that people who've come to the edge of crisis, who've ended up in traumatic situations that only increase their anxiety, and they get in this cycle of anxiety, end up being detained in ways that I think are inhumane, frankly. And that's why I think we owe it to them and owe it to all the families out there to get a move on and to get to see that change.
10 years ago, the Conservative-led government commissioned the Winterbourne Review to look into the treatment of those with autism. 10 years ago. How much has actually changed since then?
Well, Gloria, you're right to remember Winterbourne View, that care home that was closed after horrendous misconduct matters came to light as a result of investigative journalism. I think that what we've seen is a plethora of plans. We've seen more investment in this area, which is good. But what we haven't seen is yet on-the-ground transformation. And this rather awkward struggle between the NHS and local authorities, which frankly means that because the NHS have lots of resources, people in this position just end up languishing in detention without being able to come out to be supported by local government commissioned services. You know, the average length of detention for people in this category is 5.5 years. That is an incredibly long period of time, and the cost of it as well to the system is immense. We've got to do better. We've had people like Professor Simon Wesley come up with recommendations that the government has accepted, and there is a promise of law change as well. I want to see the law reformed quickly so that we can end this lengthy detention period, shorten the terms, and really focus on treatment and support and getting people out of those situations and back into the community where they belong.
Robert Buckland, thank you so much for joining us. I've learnt a lot about autism by talking to you and listening to you today. Thank you. Now, David Davis spectacularly called for the Prime Minister to just go yesterday, and there's wild speculation about how many letters of no confidence are in. The chair of the 1922 committee, Graham Brady, may or may not have. Christian Wakeford's decision to defect to Labour yesterday has, or could have ironically helped the Prime Minister, but things are still very volatile. He's still in a perilous position. I'll be getting the Labour perspective on this shortly, but first I'm delighted to be joined by Conservative MP for Romford, Andrew Rosendale. And Andrew is with me now. Welcome back to the show. Good to see you,
Hello,
Andrew.
Gloria.
What's your take on this plot?
Well, politics is politics, and I've seen many plots over the years against every party leader go through these types of affairs, and it's pretty sad, really, because, as you know, being a former MP, your colleagues together, you should stand with each other through good and bad times. And Boris is going through a bad patch at the moment, so it's very disappointing when people use that as a chance to change the leadership. You've got to give the leader support if they're doing the right thing for the country. Now, I'm not defending what's gone on in Downing Street, and there does need to be major change. But really, Gloria, is this an issue that means that we should totally reform the government and have a new Prime Minister? I think there are bigger issues now to focus on, and I would like to see us get over this patch, focus on the big issues that our country faces. Boris was elected with a huge majority, the biggest majority of any Conservative leader since Margaret Thatcher, and I think that he needs to be able to get on with the job for our country.
Is your sense that the immediate danger to him has subsided?
It's hard to say. I think probably it has, and I hope it has. I think people are getting a little bit hysterical, really, I'm afraid. Yes, there are big issues that need to be resolved in the mechanisms of government and Number 10. I think Boris needs to really alter things and get back to policy. It's too much internal wrangling. Focus on the policy. So I do think that people are starting to calm down a little bit, but Boris now needs to seize that initiative and show that he's got a great vision for our country. If he does that and sticks to policy, I think people will unite behind him.
You don't think there's anything in Dominic Cummings' draw at home that could finish him off for good? That's the danger, isn't it?
Look, I'm bored of hearing about Dominic Cummings. No one ever voted for Dominic Cummings. I think he's betrayed the trust of Boris. I don't know what goes on behind the door of Number 10. I don't know what goes on in Number 10 under any Prime Minister, because it's private, and really it should remain private. I think that we as a country have massive challenges to face, and I want the country to be led by someone with integrity and have strong leadership. And I do think, despite all his faults, Boris is unusual as a Prime Minister. He's a lot more, I think he's more authentic. I think he's a real person, and he makes mistakes like we do. And I just think this is a big mistake, but it shouldn't be career-ending. I think he needs the space to get over this and take the government and the country forward.
Were you in Prime Minister's Question Time yesterday?
I wasn't in the chamber, but I was watching it on television. On
Right.
GB News, actually.
Very, very good. What... I don't know if there were any expletives. Please, if there were, please don't repeat them on television. But what was your reaction when you watched David Davis say what he said?
I was sad, actually. A lot of regard for David Davis. He's a powerful figure in Parliament. He's contributed enormously to different governments over the years, and I respect him a great deal. But I was disappointed at what he said yesterday. You know, kicking Boris when he's down, that's how it came across to me. And I'm particularly upset because I remember that David Davis and Boris left Theresa May's government together because they wanted a proper Brexit. They didn't want this watered-down deal that Mrs May came forward with. And I respected him enormously for walking out of Chequers, and then Boris did a couple of days later. And I thought they were allies and friends. And really, I don't think what David said was fair. I think Boris needs to be given a bit of space to get back on track. Don't kick a man when he's down.
Well, let's talk about kicking a man when he's down. Let's talk about Christian Wakeford, who defected to the Labour Party, crossed the floor. I just want to explain to our viewers the concept of the tea room, OK? So the tea room, it's like a cafe, you know, an old-fashioned cafe with old-fashioned furniture, but only MPs can go into that tea room. And I was just thinking, my goodness, how... Because, you sit in different areas, different parties, but you still queue up together to get your cup of tea or whatever.
You do.
I mean, how would you feel if, Christian, or how would your colleagues feel if Christian Wakeford's behind you in that queue for a cuppa? Would you talk to him?
Look, the tea room, it's funny, really, because almost politics, you don't show political... stances in the tea room. You just chat with each other and get on. And actually, I find, and I know you'll feel the same, Gloria, that I find that I have a lot in common with members of the Labour Party on a lot of issues. Yeah. We have a lot of common ground, but it's not shown in the chamber. That's the hostile bit, and it doesn't come out on TV either, particularly. But I think a lot of Labour MPs I talk to regularly, and we have a lot of common ground. We agree on a lot of things. There isn't the division that the public perceive in the way that is in the media. I am baffled by what Christian has done. I got involved in politics. I believe in things. I didn't do it just because I thought, I'll have a career in politics. I believe in things. I believe in certain values and British values, and the Conservative Party represents broadly what I stand for. So I don't understand how you can be a Conservative and a Brexiteer, as Christian is. And great to see him wearing the Union Jack mask behind Keir Starmer. We don't see many of those on the Labour benches. How can you suddenly become a socialist overnight? I mean, I've got no problem with people that believe in socialism, if that's what they truly believe in. It's a different point of view. But I don't see how you can be a Conservative one minute and a socialist the next. And I just think to myself, is he being a little bit opportunistic in thinking, well, his seat's probably going to be lost next time anyway? So I don't know why he's done it, and I'm very disappointed, because I think he was a very good addition to the parliamentary party after he won Bury South at the last election. So I'm sad to lose him, but I wonder why he's really done it.
Always a pleasure. You're so frank and open and honest, so thank you so much.
And I'm not defecting to anybody, I can assure you.
I'm certain of that. Andrew Rosendale, Conservative
Thank
MP
you.
for Romford. Always a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you, Gloria.
We're going to be speaking to Shadow Levelling Up Minister Alex Norris on the events of this week in politics, Bury South's newly turned Labour MP, and Rachel Reeves' speech this morning. I'll be back in a minute.
I'm Liam Halligan. Join me every weekday at 1 p.m. for On the Money, your daily dose of economics, business and consumer news. I got 25 years experience covering economics and finance. We hold grown-up discussions with a host of experts who really know their stuff. We can't buy gas and store it. That was a mistake, wasn't it?
I think it was a mistake.
Even you, Liam, don't have a crystal ball.
Inflation's a real threat.
Every weekday at 1, you're On the Money.
Hello there, I'm Eamon.
And I'm Isabel.
And you're watching the GB News digital stream across the United Kingdom.
And around the world.
If you're here in the UK, you can also watch us on your TV screen. GB News is Freeview channel 236.
On Sky, we're channel 515.
626 on Virgin Media.
Just remember, you might need to retune your TV to watch the channel.
Yeah, and if you are doing that, find out more about retuning by going to gbnews.uk.
Join my show Farrar, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Hello there, I'm Eamon Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamon
and Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
Welcome back. After an explosive day yesterday in British politics, the waters seem to have calmed down, for now at least. Christian Wakeford, the Bury South MP, defected from the Conservative Party to the Labour Party. The centre of British politics seems to be in Bury today, as the Shadow Chancellor Rachel Reeves delivered a speech on Labour's plan for a stronger economy. Joining me to chat about that is Alex Norris, Shadow Levelling Up Minister and Labour MP for Nottingham North. Alex, it is good to see you. How are you?
I'm very well, Gloria. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Now, just we'll start on the big politics before we talk about Rachel Reeves' speech, if we may. The Labour Party says you want Prime Minister Boris Johnson to resign, but looking at the polls at the moment, it might be in your best interest for him to stay, might it?
Well, I mean, as you know, Gloria, I think I've said this before in your programme, I'm not one who kind of makes my decisions based on polling or on party interest. This is about what's best for the country. We're still in, this pandemic. It requires strong leadership. It may require rules to be set that need to be followed. And the Prime Minister's lost all authority on that. So, of course, he shouldn't be leading us through this period in our history. OK. Let's talk about
Rachel Reeves' speech. A precondition for doing anything is being trusted with public money, she has said in an interview with the Financial Times. How will you get people to trust you with their hard-earned cash?
Yeah, but I think it's a really important place to start, because as politicians, we often end up throwing numbers around or say we're investing this or we've spent money on that. But actually, the reality is it isn't our money, it's the public's money. And they've worked hard for it, paid their taxes, and they want to know their government's going to treat it carefully, seriously, and spend it wisely. So, building confidence in that is everything an opposition needs to do. And you can't just click your fingers and do it. But I think, doing what Rachel's done today, which is set out what we want to do, where we want to spend our money in the economy, is a way of saying to people, we've got good plans. The government are spending their week just trying to save Boris Johnson's job. We're out here with a serious plan for people across the country's jobs and to get better jobs. So, I think you can see a real difference as to who could be trusted on the economy there.
Rachel Reeves has also said that Labour is a pro-worker party, but also a pro-business party, and very proudly so. Can you be both? Are there inherent conflicts between workers and bosses? One is interested in profit, the other has to sell their labour. It's an unequal relationship.
It is, and as you know, I'm a former trade union official, so I've been in the sharp end of those conversations over the years. However, business does best when it's good for staff, and staff, of course, do well when business is going well, because otherwise they wouldn't have jobs and those incomes. Britain's economy is a mixed economy. It always has been. So yes, you need a strong public sector. We would always advocate for that, and you'd expect that. But we need a strong private sector too. And part of that is supporting businesses to succeed. So investing in the right places as a government, which we've talked to today about committing to 3% of GDP on research and development investment, which is something that Britain's really good at and could be even better at. So I don't think the two have to be in tension. Of course, there'll be moments, but that's part of industrial relations.
OK, let's talk about Christian Wakeford, your new parliamentary colleague. The hard left, including former and current MPs, they were very active on social media yesterday. Admittedly, they are in a minority, but they are furious. You could let someone join your party who voted against lots of things that you voted for, free school meals in school holidays, for example.
Yeah, but I think the process of having to defend what were clearly not very strong positions, such as the farce over free school meals, actually is part of the reason that Christians realised that actually, for him, like millions of people across the country, this Conservative Party does not speak for them. Gloria, we've lost 4 general elections in a row. I'm sick of losing. I think Britain's better with a Labour government. And part of stopping losing and part of winning elections is persuading people who last time voted for other parties to vote Labour, or in this case, to want to be a Labour MP. So I think we should, I know that people are taking this as a sign of change. I think it's a good thing. It's what Keir Starmer said yesterday. Labour is changing. I know for some people that's not what they want. However, all I can say is I think every day about how I felt waking up the morning after December the 12th, 2019, just as I do the 3 previous elections, and how much I hated that and how much I felt we'd let people down by not getting them a Labour government. So I don't want to feel like that again, and this is a part of that change.
Most of our viewers, most people in the country will never have been to a Labour Party meeting before. Boy, is Christian Wakeford in for an experience. Labour Party member meetings are a lot more frequent than Conservative Party members' meetings. They can go on for a good length of time. Give Christian Wakeford some survival tips. Yeah,
this is the age-old debate that sometimes you think, well, it's better for the meeting to start at 6:30 because maybe I might get to see my family afterwards. But actually, starting earlier only gives you more time to talk about the minutes and the matters arising. I mean, look, we are the biggest political party in Western Europe. We've got hundreds of thousands of members, and that's a wonderful thing. They're good people who want to come together to improve their communities. But as with all passionate people, if you put them in one place, it can get quite something. So I believe, I may be wrong because I'm not an expert on Bury politics, but from what I've seen online, I think Christian's first meeting may be tonight. So I will wish him very well in that. And all I can say is, and this is my view, lean into it, go with it, don't watch the clock, just enjoy the discussion, enjoy the disagreement, and go for a pint afterwards. That's my way of doing it.
I think that's brilliant advice. Shadow Levelling Up Minister Alex Norris, member for Nottingham North. Thank you for your time. Thank you. Coming up shortly, Conservative MP Nickie Aiken says we need to talk about the menopause, and the DUP's Ian Paisley wants us to have access to our next of kin's digital footprint when they die.
Good afternoon. It is 12:30. I'm Rosie Wright. Keep you up to date here in the GB News newsroom. MPs have been urged to report any blackmail attempts to the police if they've been pressured by the government for calling on the Prime Minister to resign. A senior Conservative MP, William Ragg, accused the government of intimidating MPs who tried to remove Boris Johnson. Downing Street say they are not aware of any evidence to support what are clearly serious allegations about lawmaker intimidation. The Bury South MP, who defected from the Conservatives, says Labour will give the country the leadership it deserves, not the one they are embarrassed by. Christian Wakeford introduced a speech by the Shadow Chancellor in Bury, saying the Conservative Party aren't even talking about the problem, let alone offering solution. Well, Rachel Reeves says she's happy to have him as a Labour MP and is looking forward to getting to know him. Ghislaine Maxwell's legal team have filed a motion for a retrial weeks after she was found guilty of grooming underage girls to be sexually abused by Jeffrey Epstein. It's after one juror says he failed to disclose before the trial that he was sexually abused as a child and that he described his experience during jury deliberations. Well, Maxwell's lawyer says the disclosures could have convinced other members of the jury to convict her. A new report has found former Pope Benedict XVI failed to take action in 4 cases of alleged child abuse while he was Archbishop in Germany. The investigation looked into allegations of sexual abuse at a Roman Catholic church in Munich between 1945 and 2019. The former Pope strictly denies the allegations. Emma Raducanu and Andy Murray have both been knocked out of the second round of the Australian Open this morning. US Open champion Raducanu was hampered by blisters on her racket hand, while the 3-time Grand Slam champion Andy Murray said he was disappointed and frustrated to go out so early. You are up to date here on GB News. We're on your TV, online and on DAB Plus radio. After a short break, we'll be back to the briefing with Gloria.
Hello there, I'm Eamon.
And I'm Isabel.
And you're watching the GB News digital stream across the United Kingdom.
And around the world.
If you're here in the UK, you can also watch us on your TV screen. GB News is Freeview channel 236.
On Sky, we're channel 515.
626 on Virgin Media.
Just remember, you might need to retune your TV to watch the channel.
Yeah, and if you are doing that, find out more about retuning by going to gbnews.uk.
Join my show Farrar, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Hello there, I'm Eamon Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamon
and Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
Now, much of our lives are now on social media, not only pictures and videos, but tons of information about us. But what happens to all of that when you die? Who can access those digital platforms? Joining me in the studio is Ian Paisley, who is trying to change the law. He laid a 10-minute rule bill in the House of Commons on Tuesday. Tell me what inspired you to try and change the law. Tell me how you want to change the law.
Well, thank you for having me on your show, and it's a really, really important platform that people hear this, because I'd watched other cases. I identified a gap, that here we have something where everyone has a digital device, but when something happens to when they die, they then discover you don't own anything that's on that device. You don't even own the right to access it, and yet most people don't have a will yet. Young people unexpectedly die, and for their parents to get access to sentimental material was something which I found was very profound and something that could help people. And as you know, in the job that I do as a Member of Parliament, which you previously did, ultimately it's about helping people. And this was a gap that needed to help folk to get access for next of kin when someone dies to their digital devices, and to allow them to have maybe share photo albums, videos, diaries, nice messages, friendships. And I think it's only right and proper that we're not bound by what the digital companies allow us to access, but that we're bound by a right to access that material as of right.
And you've talked previously about easing costly and uncertain legal action against the digital platforms. What sort of hoops do people have to go through?
Yeah, well, this was the thing which really got my goat up. I'd run into a constituency case where a constituent had gone to solicitor and that had cost them about £2,000 in the first instance. Someone's just died and had to go to the solicitor to get access. And then going to court would have cost probably about a further £9,000 with no guarantee that they would have had access at the end of it. And so that sort of burden, let's turn that around. Let's reset the relationship between the tech companies and people. And let's have a relationship which works for the next of kin if something tragic happens and they're able to get access to this material. And of course, there's a default. If I have a device and I don't want anyone ever to have access, I can sign a disclaimer or a default at point of purchase.
Other tech companies, are they being helpful to you in what you're suggesting?
Well, I've an engagement with the Minister already. The tech companies are something different. Now, the tech companies will tell you, of course, there's rights of access, but it's on their terms. They set the terms and conditions, and whether it's Instagram or Apple or Microsoft, it'll be all different types of rights to access, but it won't be uniform. This automatically will allow me, if someone that close to me, one of my children, were to tragically die, I would have right to access their phone. The digital companies would give me the access codes. I could look at what material was there. And of course, if there's been something abusive, it might throw up something very beneficial for the police to investigate. Indeed, I mentioned the case of a lovely young girl who was 14, Molly, and she died in tragic circumstances, and the police would have been aided considerably if they had access to her material.
Talking a lot of sense. I think a lot of people will agree with what you are trying to do. Can I ask you briefly about Conservative Party woes? We were both in Parliament during Theresa May's quite long and slow decline, but it happened and you knew it was going to happen. Does it feel the same at the moment? Because we're not in there and you will be able to sense things that we can't sense if you're not in Parliament.
It doesn't feel the same at all.
Okay.
So as an observer, we sit from the opposition benches. It's a great popcorn seat where you can just watch everything that's going on. And I get the sense that Boris has bitten back, that the bulldog spirit is back with him, and that he has that survival instinct and he's going to survive. I get the impression it was a bit of a turning point yesterday for him, and he was swashbuckling at a point whenever most people would have been beaten. And I think that was a very interesting bounce. Now, is it as they say in business, is it a dead cat bounce? Where you think it's bounced, but it hasn't? Let's wait and see. But I think that Boris has turned the tide yesterday. I was disappointed. I think that the Labour leader could have been, if he really wanted to bring him down, he could have really executed him yesterday. He didn't. He didn't have that knockout blow. But that's politics. It's just that mood where you're in that cauldron. It's unbelievable that the sense, and Boris used it. And I'd say the chap who crossed the House, looking right in the whites of the eye of Boris Johnson, whenever Boris was saying, I win that seat back, something inside him says, he just might.
Fascinating. Fascinating to talk to you. Come back again. Really nice to see you.
Thank you very
so
much,
Ian Paisley. Now, it's time for the latest in my series of interviews with MPs where we go behind the politics and get to know the real person. This time I talked with Nickie Aiken, Conservative MP for Cities of London and Westminster. She's Vice Chair of the All-Parliamentary Group on the Menopause and says we need to talk about it much more. Where did you grow up and what did your parents do for a living?
Well, I am a product of the Union. I was conceived in Cardiff, apparently. I was born in London and I grew up in Scotland and then back to Cardiff when I was about 13 or 14. My mum was a hairdresser and had her own mobile business. She had a salon before my brother and I were born, but then after that she did hairdressing in the house, or she then went and did a mobile business. And my dad worked in insurance. He was a manager for a big insurance company. Hence why he was living all around the country.
Were you the first in your family to go to university?
I was, yes. I went to Exeter University, and that's where I really cut my political teeth.
That's when you became a Conservative, when you were a student.
I was.
Unusual.
I had been in the Conservative Party most of my adult life. I joined the first week I went to Exeter. I was sitting in a corridor waiting to be interviewed for the university magazine, and I started talking to this young man who was doing the same, and he told me after our conversation that I was a Conservative and I should join Exeter University Conservative Association, and he was going to be chairman, and that was one Robert Halfon.
Really?
Yes.
My goodness, imagine if you'd been sat in that corridor with one Jeremy Corbyn, how things could have been different.
Who knows? Who knows? No, but having had that conversation with Robert, it was obvious that I was a Conservative. And so, that's where I started.
Were your mum and dad Conservatives, do you know?
Yeah, very much. My family was always really into politics and current affairs to debate and discuss. And I remember going every Saturday round to see my paternal grandparents, and my grandfather, I can still remember him saying, "Now listen here." And he was from the South Wales Valleys. He was from the Cynnon Valley. His father had been a shopkeeper, but in a mining village. But he had been an alcoholic and had, I think, destroyed the business through his alcoholism. And my grandfather then moved down to Cardiff and became a delivery boy, and then became a bus driver, but was always into current affairs. So we did lots of debating. Obviously, this was the early to mid 80s, so Thatcherism was very much part of that. I remember the miners' strike. I remember my father saying to his best friend, and they were both grew up in working class area of Cardiff, saying, if Thatcher gives in to the miners, I will give up on her, which I think is really interesting to hear another side of the story, particularly in South Wales, where it's not known even now, as a hotbed of conservatism, but there were people who really believed in Thatcher.
So you get elected at the last election. You are vice chair of the cross-party group on the menopause. Why?
Because one of the reasons why I wanted to go into national politics, and I had never really thought about it, to be honest. I was very happy in local government. Being the leader of Westminster City Council, I don't think gets much better, really. But the time came, and it was a very difficult time in the end of 2019. My predecessor decided at the last minute to step down, and Chuck Ramuna had been selected for the Lib Dems. My seat is 72% Remain. I voted Remain. I think we all feared that with a candidate like Chuck Ramuna, who looks the part, sounds the part. Personally, I don't think he is the part, but he looks and sounds it. I thought we were under threat. And I was quite humbled that I was being asked proactively by people in the street, were stopping me after Mark Field, my predecessor, stepped down. People were stopping me in the street saying, I hope you're going to stand. And I just thought, if I don't, obviously someone's going to get selected. They are likely to be elected as the Conservative candidate in Westminster and the City of London. And I will probably always regret it, thinking I probably could do a better job. I don't know if I could or not, but you've got to take those opportunities, don't you, when they arise. And I'd never thought really about it, but I went for it. It was a tough campaign, but we won. I actually increased the majority that Mark had in 2017. And I decided I wanted to go in, one of the reasons, because I want to speak about the issues that aren't always spoken about. And menopause, I think it's not until you go through these things. It's a bit like pregnancy and labour. No one talks to you about labour. And then you go through it and you think, why did nobody tell me about this? And I think the same with the menopause. It's been this well-kept secret until now, I think until our generation. And I think it's because we have got to the stage in our careers where we have risen to a certain level, but then all of a sudden you get hit by the truck that is the menopause, and you think, how the hell am I going to carry on doing the job I'm doing? Our generation is also of the ones where we're the sandwich generation, where we've got children still, because we have children, tend to have them later. I had my first child at 35. But then we've also got elderly parents. And whether we like it or not, it tends to be us women who take on the caring responsibilities, because I think we feel obligated, if nothing else. And so I wanted to go into Parliament to be able to lift the lid on some of these issues, because I was suffering, and therefore if I was suffering and didn't feel like I was getting the help and support I needed, then I wanted to help the millions of other women who are going through the same thing.
How are you suffering?
You name it, I've been through it. I had a delightful night's sweat last night, I'll tell you. Huge amounts of weight gain, confidence goes, the night sweats, the insomnia. I'm on HRT, which helps, certainly has helped. It also, I think, helps to speak about it and talk to other women. And that's why I'm delighted that we've set up this APPG for the menopause. Carolyn Harris, who is a Labour MP from South Wales, so, you know, we obviously get on. She has really been the flag bearer, and I've been absolutely delighted to support her and be part of Team Menopause.
You said that you wanted to help people by getting the support that they needed. What support might you need while you're going through the menopause? I'm just turned 49. You first started with the menopause at 48, so come on, give me some tips. What do I need to do?
Believe me, it's a delight. Well, I'm coming up to 53, so I'm still going through it.
Really?
Yeah.
So
5 years, but I mean, you can last for, you know, some women will just sail through it, and that's great. Others will go through different levels of nightmares. It's about having the support. It's about being able to go to your GP and get the information and the help and support you need. And that's what the menopause APPG is really about, is lifting the lid and trying to ensure that GPs have the information, because not all GPs will. And I think it's one of those issues which is, now that people are talking about it, people know that they deserve to get the help. I think in the past, women didn't want to talk about it, even admit they're going through it, because they saw it as the end of their lives. It's not. For me, it's a change, but it can be a change for good, in that you basically stop your childbearing years, which, you know, some people might find that sad. I personally think it's very welcome, because then you can get on with the rest of your life and concentrate on you and decide, look, it's middle age, isn't it? You think, I've done my life. What do I want to achieve in the next half? And I think it's really important that women do see this as an opportunity. It's not the end, it's the beginning. And let's celebrate that. Let's celebrate all these amazing women in their 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s who are still providing their wisdom, their knowledge, their experience, and let's celebrate them.
Do you think that women with experience and wisdom in Parliament are celebrated and listened to?
Well, I think it's work in progress. I actually was on this bill committee in Parliament a couple of weeks ago, and Angela Eagle was on it. She's on the opposite side. And I was in awe of listening to her. It was about ground rent, so it's hardly sexy stuff. But very, very important issue to get right. And she spent a lot of time debating amendments, and I just sat there and thought, if I am lucky enough to be re-elected, maybe a couple more times, and I get to a stage where I hope I am as experienced and as knowledgeable and as brilliant as someone like Angela Eagle. Now, she's not my party, but I really do think it's so important to listen to people who've been in the House a long time. Doesn't matter what political party, but it's the experience about where they've been and what they've done that I think I should absorb and hopefully be able to use myself one day.
It's really interesting that you say that, because I just was thinking, listening to you, I can't imagine saying to a male MP, maybe I'm being unfair, but I just can't imagine saying, who do you really look at and learn from an elder, perhaps that you seek wisdom from? I can't imagine I'd ever say a woman. But hopefully I'm wrong. I don't think I am.
I don't know. I mean, I think it's great that we've got Harriet Harman as the mother of the House. I think that's really important, and that's a great step forward. But I think you're right. But I do think we are fortunate that we have got some amazing women in Parliament from all parties, but we've got to have more. And that's what we're determined to do, the Conservative Party, I think the Labour Party are way ahead of us, but we've got to improve the number of women who are representing the nation on our benches.
And you're vice chair of the Conservative Party. You are in a prime position to deliver that. How?
That's one of my big tasks, and I'm hoping that we can really push that this year. I think one of the things we need to do is celebrate the women we've got on our benches already. And in my intake, we had a huge number of women come in from all walks of life, all ages. I've got people like Sarah and Deanna and Nicola who are in their early 20s, up to Jo Gideon who came in, who's a grandmother, and everybody in between. And we've got to celebrate them. We've got to get them out to encourage other women that it doesn't matter what your background is, where you've come from, what you've done as a career, whether you went to university, who cares? It's about what you stand for and what you will bring to the Commons.
Just going back to something you said earlier, you said when you were talking about the menopause, you started that sentence by saying it's not just the menopause, it's also labour and childbirth that we don't talk about. Is there anything, I've never been through labour, is there anything that we should be talking about when it comes to childbirth that we're not having a conversation about?
I think it just goes back to the general issue of women's health. And I think probably because we haven't had as many women involved in policy making over decades. It's always been very much a male-orientated career, if you like. That I think it's now, because we're getting more women into Parliament and more women into senior positions, that issues like women's health are now coming to the fore. And the government now is looking at the women's health strategy, which I'm really excited about. And Maria Caulfield, who's the minister, is so on it. And that's why it's so important, I think, that we've got to make sure that there are women's voices heard. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted to go into Parliament. Some of the most outstanding debates I've taken part in over the last couple of months have been about baby loss. I had a miscarriage just before my daughter. And
when was that?
That was 2003. And it was horrendous. I mean, it was dreadful. And it was, again, it's not until you go through it and you realise that actually 25% of births, of pregnancies end in miscarriage. But until you go through it, you have no idea. But that debate, it was seeing the Commons at its best. I remember people got very emotional, and I was standing up to intervene when people got upset. Angela Crawley from the SNP stood up when Jeremy Hunt got upset. And it was us coming together as a parliament to discuss issues which people care about. It's not about politics, it's about people.
Tell me about your experience.
Oh, mine was, I was 8 weeks. My first attempt of trying to get pregnant with my husband, and just 8 weeks, it just happened. It was unfortunate. But it's not until then you have your rainbow child, and I know Carrie Johnson mentioned this at the birth of her daughter. Again, I hadn't heard about that phrase before, and I think it's a really important one. But when I got pregnant with my daughter, I remember being terrified of going for that first scan. You're just convinced that this baby's not going to be viable because your last one was a miscarriage. So, but again, going back to the issues about women's health, it's also about ensuring that men are aware of what we go through. But I think a lot of men want to be involved. So the menopause, I know, because my husband's living through it with me. But millions of men are doing so with their partners and their sisters and their mothers. And again, it's getting these issues out, which not just helps women, it helps the men.
You're a feminist, aren't you?
Yes.
100%.
Yeah.
Nickie Aiken, thank you for your time today.
Thank you.
And there's a slightly longer version of that interview on YouTube. You've been watching The Briefing with me, Gloria De Piero. The show is back every weekday from noon. Up next, it's On the Money with Liam Halligan. But for now, it's time for your weather forecast.
Hello. It is a sparkling day of winter sunshine out there for the vast majority. It's a little fresh perhaps, but certainly tonight it's going to turn cold with a hard frost forming and forming pretty quickly. Here's the reason why the weather's so settled at the moment. A chunky area of high pressure. But the winds go around the high like that, so they are coming down the North Sea. So it's the east coast that's seeing a fairly brisk and chilly wind, and there are a few showers. Coastal strip of Lincolnshire down into Norfolk in particular, seeing a few showers and a brisk wind. It's quite breezy across the Northern Isles. Any showers here fading away. Some patchy cloud, but for the vast majority it is blue skies, and temperatures getting up to 5 to 7 degrees Celsius.